What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Today we'll be taking a look at the newly released Cold War Germany map, and I'll be answering one very important question. Is this finally the map that you should actually spend your money on right now in its current form? As I'm sure a lot of you will be aware, we've had a constant stream of new maps for DCS World, including Afghanistan, Iraq, and Kola, which released not too long ago. But I think it's fair to say that almost all of those maps have left at least a big portion of the community somewhat disappointed, both the single player and the multiplayer people. Whether that be as a lack of detail or the fact that it's early access and that there's some patchy work in it, or just a general lack of some texturing. Well, today we'll be looking at the Cold War Germany map, and let me tell you a little disclaimer. It's freaking amazing. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
Before we dive into any of the details associated with this new map, I just want to put it into a little bit of context. We have had a lot of new maps released for DCS over the last couple of years. There is one big problem for the multiplayer community, that a lot of servers simply don't seem to be adopting these maps. We've had the Sinai map, we've had the Afghanistan, Iraq, we've had the Kola maps. And yet somehow for multiplayer, these all seem to be an issue because they're simply not used. It's still the majority of servers working with Caucasus and the Syria map. And as for the single player community such as myself, or people who just like to fly co-op missions with their friends, all of these aforementioned maps have massive flaws. The fact is, a lot of them are in early access, and what a lot of developers seem to be doing, including Eagle Dynamics, is taking a huge area to work on and then doing it in patches and then releasing the map as early access, and therefore sort of justifying people paying money for it, which I am not against early access, but the fact is that a vast majority of the areas on these maps are completely untouched or just unfinished. You may have certain bases, towns, and cities which are finished and are high fidelity and look great, but so long as you have to operate outside of those, which 99% of the time you will if you're flying a mission, especially in a fast jet, then you will inevitably be met with some very poor detail, and your immersion will be completely broken as a result. Now, this is the problem, in my opinion, with all of these maps and this whole early access thing, is that developers just don't seem to understand that when they release these maps, people lose interest very quickly because they see that so much of the map is unfinished. And I think this is the reason why multiplayer servers are not adopting these maps. And this is why I think the Syria map has been successful in the multiplayer community and also in the single player community, because not only is Ugra Media excellent at modeling and making the map stand out visually, but also the fact that they release their maps in a very different way. Instead of having patchy work over a large area that they then fill in the gaps later, Ugra Media concentrates all their attention on making sure that the central part of the map is completely or mostly finished, where there is no patches. And this is what we are having right now. We are in phase 1 of the Cold War Germany map, which is going to be followed by phases 2 and 3 later on. But even so, at phase 1, we already have a huge area to play with, and there is not a single patch in this area which is completely untouched or unfinished, which means our immersion is not going to be broken flying anywhere within this central part of the map. And I believe this fact alone will draw more players to buy the map because it is so feature complete, even if it has not currently reached its full potential in terms of its overall area. Now, the other fact is that the Cold War Germany location must be one of the absolute best spots that we can actually ask for in DCS World. It fits such a huge portion of our current inventory in terms of aircraft. Everything from the F5, the F4, the early 4th gen fighters such as the MiG-29, basically all Flaming Cliffs 3 aircraft could fit into this map. It's based on the 80s, however, it is very easy to stretch your imagination and pretend like the Berlin Wall never came down, and therefore you could easily make scenarios here for the 1990s. If you were to try and push it a little bit further to the 2000s, you would definitely have to start ignoring some of the assets and some of the vehicles and things and some of the missing infrastructure and buildings that obviously came later on in Germany's history. However, I think the majority of DCS players will agree that the Cold War setting is one of the settings that DCS can actually replicate in the most realistic way. Because as soon as we start getting closer to current times, we have to start ignoring various things we don't have in DCS, such as electronics warfare, jamming, stealth, low observability, and some very, very high-tech surface-to-air missile systems, and various other weapon systems, of course. Whereas things from the 80s are becoming more and more available to us in terms of the public information, and we can actually simulate things more realistically in DCS based from the 70s and 80s and perhaps the early 90s than we can from the 2010s, etc. So, with that said, this map is really shaping up to be like the most perfect location made by a developer that is really good at providing a high level of detail over a large portion of the map from day one. So let's see if the details actually stack up to Ugra Media's reputation. So first of all, the map looks absolutely stunning. This has got to be the best map I have ever come across for DCS World. And I'm not just saying that because it's finally a green map in contrast to all these desert maps that we've been getting recently. No, not at all. The Kola map is also green, and I think the Kola map is truly one of the biggest disappointments of the 21st century. It's so terrible in so many ways when it comes to the vegetation, the texturing, how the integration of the forests and everything. It just looks awful in so many areas. The Germany map, the Cold War Germany map, my god, what a huge contrast to the Kola map. And of course, I appreciate the fact that the Kola map has a lot of very barren and unpopulated areas. And of course, the Germany map is chock full of towns, villages. However, it still is got a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees, a lot of forests, and I think Ugra Media has absolutely nailed it. The vegetation, to start with, is just bang on. It looks absolutely beautiful, certainly within the limitations of the DCS Edge engine. The forests look fairly three-dimensional, and the way they're integrated into the landscape with the infrastructure, the roads, and the fields, I mean, it just looks so bloody good. All the fields integrate with the rest of the terrain in a very seamless and beautiful way. The way the little villages are modeled with all the tiny little details in there, various cemeteries, churches. We have such a huge level of attention to details you get close that if you're flying helicopters, there is basically nowhere you can go on this map where you won't actually be completely immersed in your surroundings, and you will have such a great perception of depth, I think, as a result of all these small little objects such as wheelbarrows and various little things, bicycles lying around, little stalls. That I think it's amazing. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this is the first map in DCS where it is genuinely enjoyable to just go out for some sightseeing. Forget about blowing stuff up. It is just amazing to take off in a helicopter and then just go buzz around the various areas and just enjoy all the little details and all the unique features of the East Germany side and the West Germany side, of course, as well. And Berlin, well, Berlin is just phenomenal. The way it's modeled, the level of detail, just like all other cities, to be fair, on this map, are superbly well done. But because Berlin, of course, is so unique with the Berlin Wall dividing the east and west side of Berlin, the amount of unique objects, all the historical objects, you can go and fly around the Reichstag, you can go fly around anywhere you like that you have seen in Berlin, and you will recognize it immediately. And I'm in love with flying around this map. Genuinely, I just want to go out and sightsee, which I never ever did in any other map. This is the first time ever. Now, when it comes to things like flying around the villages, Most of the terrain is quite flat, so for anybody like me who's really interested in flying low level through the mountains or hills, there is some rolling hills a little bit further south towards Frankfurt area. And it is very enjoyable, to be quite frank, because the level of detail is so good, even in all these flat landscapes. It still makes low-level flying an absolute pleasure. There is a lot of waterways, different rivers, streams, canals. The coastline is modeled really well as well. I think within the limitations of the DCS engine, we've got different beaches. But aside from that, in general, the airfields and air bases are one of the highlights of this map. This is something where the Kola map, in my opinion, has failed pretty miserably, especially when it came to all of the Russian bases. Whereas here, the East Germany bases and the East Germany airports, for example, Schönefeld, they just look so good. I am just in love with the attention to detail that they have here. The fact that they've modeled these Tu-134s and the IL-62s that are just kind of lying around. For the West Germany side, that would be the Boeing 727 that they have, and also the Boeing 747. And I think it adds a huge amount of just immersion. And I think the way they have modeled and the way they have textured all the airfields, all the concrete, especially on the East Germany side, with the air bases on all the runway markings, taxiway markings. Again, it just looks exactly like you would expect it to look. And again, I just keep making the comparison to the Kola map because the Kola map was something I had huge hopes for, and I thought it'd be getting improved massively over the last year or so, which in my opinion, it really hasn't. And this is something where they've really failed in terms of the markings and providing that sort of immersion of where you are in an airbase, especially for the Russian side. Well, here for the East Germany side, which shares a lot of similarities for the Warsaw Pact and Soviet-Russian air bases, of course, as well, with all of its bunkers, equipment, all of its markings. It even has these runway visual distance markers as well that they've added. It just feels absolutely amazing that I think you can now finally be immersed in this era, and seeing all the other infrastructure around the airbase is absolutely amazing. Everything from different hangars, bunkers, fences, checkpoints, various little details, other military installation and facilities. Everything is just so well put together. There is just nothing here that you ever think, my God, what have they done? Why is this in such a stupid place? Why is there no road leading up to this? Why is this building in the middle of a field? You know, all the things that were wrong with the Kola map are just so good here, which, you know, makes you think that, quite frankly, I think Ugra Media should just buy out Orbix's Kola maps, just start working on that, because if it looked like this, I think, my God, how good would that be? So the airports are modeled exceptionally well, even on the West Germany side. They're very unique, they're very different. They've got different style bunkers, you know, the buildings are different, and even when you're flying along the Berlin Wall, you can see the east and west side, how you have these horrible looking Khrushchev tower blocks, or these horrible looking Soviet style boxy buildings which just look terrible, which, to be fair, West Germany also has quite a few of, but you can definitely tell the difference between east and west, which is great. The fact that they've went to such attention to detail to just, and also when it comes to the little vehicles and cars and trucks, on the East Germany side, you'll have things like Trabants and various Soviet Ladas and trucks, gas trucks, Kras trucks. Whereas on the West Germany side, you'll have BMWs, VW Beetles, camper vans, various things of that nature. There's also small airfields around, which is amazing. Again, just having all these little details, and it's actually a shame we don't have more GA aircraft in DCS World just to go fly around with and just fly from grass strips, because I think they look really cool. One thing I'm sort of a mixed bag on is the air balloons, which seems to be scattered around the area. They look pretty cool, but then I think once you add, you know, lots of explosions and everything happening around, and all these air balloons flying around, it's going to look maybe a little bit silly. Maybe there's a way of switching them off. I haven't checked, but that's really a minor criticism. If I am talking about criticisms, One of the things that a lot of people have pointed out on the forums is the fact that some of the air bases and airfields seem to have this weird sandy texture around the taxiways and runways. And it didn't bother me too much, especially in some air bases and airfields, but there are places where I totally agree it's completely overdone. If you take a look at Frankfurt Airport, you can see it looks a little bit more like a poorly looked after golf course with bunkers than an airfield. I think that's definitely something they could really polish up and improve on a little bit. The other thing is, I think there's occasions where things just kind of pop into view instead of gently blending in or appearing like you would expect with objects. You know, as you get closer to them, sometimes they just kind of pop, and usually it happens with either things in a construction site or maybe some little bits of airfield equipment. I think that's something that could maybe optimize and improve later, but those are really minor criticisms. Overall, the attention to detail is what really draws me to this map. There is such a huge variety of things. Apart from cities and towns, you have these building sites which look absolutely just jaw-droppingly beautiful. I never thought I'd say that about a building site, but all these buildings with, you know, that are unfinished with their levels, you could almost fly through them if you had a remote control helicopter. And quite frankly, if you are into helicopter flying and you want to do a little bit of stunt flying, this map has been made for stunt flying. My God. I mean, they have modeled the inside of everything. Not just the hangars and the bunkers that you may have sort of expect by this point, but also various different interesting factories, cranes. When you fly by shipyards, you'll notice the level of detail of the cranes just looks absolutely outstanding. You can fly through various different things. Lots of things are animated, moving. You have windmills. Performance-wise, I personally don't have any complaints so far, especially considering the vast amount of scenery objects here, no matter where you fly. I think it seems to be relatively well optimized. And Ugra Media has said that they're going to continue working on the map and optimizing it even further. So overall, I just have to say, I mean, holy crap, what a job this has been on their side. I mean, this is just blowing every other map out of the water as far as I'm concerned. Have to say, guys, just buy the map. Unless you're somebody who just has absolutely zero interest in the Cold War setting or in the particular geographic location. I mean, if you just want to fly an Apache and shoot the Taliban in Afghanistan, there's no amount of, you know, convincing that I can do for you to buy this map. But if you are sitting on the sidelines and you're just thinking, you know what, I can't be spending this amount of money on maps. We currently have so many to choose from. They're all unfinished. They're all early access. They all have mixed reviews, opinions. They're not used for multiplayer, etc. Whatever it may be, I really, really hope you guys actually buy this map. And I genuinely think nobody will be disappointed because it's so good. Now, obviously, there is a huge lack of content currently for this map. Well, one, multiplayer, as we said before, you know, it will probably need to get adopted over time if a lot of players start using it. And two, if you're into various campaigns, well, there's none for this map at the moment. I'm sure, in fact, I am confident that this map will attract campaign makers and mission makers from all over because it is so good. What an amazing location. It's so well executed. And one more thing I really want to mention is that a lot of map makers now for DCS seem to be adopting the satellite imagery style for their texturing. And I honestly have to say, I think most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, that's a flop. It just doesn't work. The South Atlantic map, great example of that. There's lots of patches on the Afghanistan and Iraq maps, which I think also don't look that great as a result of satellite imagery. Ugra Media hasn't done this here. Ugra Media has gone the old-fashioned route by the sounds of it. At least I think so, looking at the way they've done everything. And that's the way they did the Syria map. And quite frankly, they've just taken everything good about the Syria map and turned it up a notch. Everything is better, cleaner, tidier, better integrated, more beautiful, and more detail. And everything, I have to say, is just on point when it comes to what I would be expecting from a good map in DCS. There is going to be a Cold War assets pack that's going to come as well, but unfortunately that's going to be later on in phase 2 or 3 of the development of this map. We don't really know any timelines. That could be anything from half a year to 2 years, who knows. It's certainly taken them a long time to complete the Syria map, so there's no way of saying. But having said that, it definitely would help getting some extra ground vehicles. As you've probably seen already on this map, there are some great military bases and installations. However, it would be great to have some more living, breathing Cold War units in terms of tanks, soldiers, ground vehicles, etc. I think this map really has a huge amount of potential for being adopted by the community and hopefully by the multiplayer servers, and hopefully it will keep all of us, the single player and the multiplayer people, happy. And I'm really looking forward to everything that it's going to bring in terms of content and other people creating all these different scenarios and missions and campaigns, and of course the dynamic campaign engine. Well, my god, this map has been absolutely made for that. So fingers crossed that comes in the not too distant future. If you have any questions about the map, please feel free to comment down below. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Please make sure to tap the like button. That really helps the video grow. But otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Adios.